How can small businesses ensure cyber resilience? I'm Mike Loder. Ending Cyber Risk starts now. Hello and welcome back to Ending Cyber Risk, presented by the team at Arctic Wolf, where each episode we unpack the ways we can put an end to risky cyber behaviour. Now on this episode, we go back to basics with Cybersecurity 101. And joining me to break it all down is Brett Rogers, Vice President Concierge Security at Arctic Wolf. It's wonderful to have you with me. What exactly is incident response? Is this a sort of red sirens and ambulances we're expecting, but in a cyber context?
Yeah,
Tell us more.
I think you've pretty much nailed it, right? So incident response is how are you going to react when something goes wrong? And so like the example you gave, if there's a fire, you have a plan on how are we going to respond to that, who are we going to call, where are we going to ensure that people are going to for safety. You have the same thing in cybersecurity, and understanding how you are going to go about going from a state of not normal back to a state of normal is extremely important, and it's something that effectively any business should ensure that they are prepared to do.
And of course, because the narrative seems to be it's not a matter of if, but when these
Absolutely.
days. So what is the incident response life cycle? Take us through a little bit about that.
Right. So I would say the first step of the life cycle, effectively your step zero, is really having a plan. It's understanding, when something does go wrong, what can I take off the shelf that tells me what I need to do? Because if you're planning during the incident, you've missed valuable time to get those things figured out ahead of time. You're wasting the time that you would be spending reacting.
Because as we know, time is of the essence once these things kick into gear.
Absolutely. And so when you have that plan, what you kind of go into is a state of what we would call detection and analysis. And so this is really where you can think of it kind of like your smoke detectors, right? Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a fire, but you want to make sure that you're collecting data, you're understanding what's going on, and when something different happens that you don't expect, whether that's smoke or in a cybersecurity event, it could be a compromise, that you're able to detect it. And then the next step that you go through is effectively looking at that data and determining whether or not that is actually an incident or not, right? It could be somebody left the popcorn on in the microwave, right, and it kicked off the smoke alarm. It could be that something legitimate was happening and you didn't quite understand it. But effectively evaluating that, moving into an evaluation state and determining whether or not this is an incident or not. When it is, you declare an incident and then you immediately start running into your playbook. The first thing that we generally run through is this idea of containment. So wherever it is, I want to lock it down right there to prevent spread. After we've gone through containment, then you want to effectively look and do what we would call eradication and remediation. So how do I get that back to a state of normal? And then finally, we go towards closing it all out, recovery, returning business operations. People can come back into the building now. Everything's ready to continue on. And I would say the final step is leading that back into planning. So everything that you learned from that incident, you want to take that back into your planning life cycle and say, hey, this is the plan that we had, and here's how we executed it. Were there things that we missed? Were there things that we could have done sooner? Let's go ahead and write that down in the plan, update that plan. It creates this constant life cycle. So every time that something does go wrong, you can learn from it the next time and effectively minimize the risk that you're creating in that situation.
That was a very good rundown from you, and it makes a lot of sense when it comes to reflecting on your mistakes and not doing them again. So let's talk a bit about some of the more common types of incidences that maybe small to medium enterprise might come across.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest incident types is what we would call business email compromise. And so this is the idea of you have a credential, it could be your email address. Yeah. It's something that defines a person in the company, and someone is compromising that credential and then using it for their own purposes. So a lot of times this kind of shows up as, hey, I don't know why the CFO sent me an email saying that he needs a lot of Amazon gift cards, but I need to go do this now. And oftentimes what adversaries will do is attach a sense of urgency. It's very similar to what you see targeting just kind of individuals.
The emotional aspect
exactly.
of it. Interesting.
And so business email compromise is one of them. I think the other one that gets talked about quite a bit is ransomware. And so this idea of I am going to, as an adversary, prevent your business from conducting operations and hold it for ransom for a period of time. Those two are continuing to rise. Business email compromise makes up kind of the majority of what we see because it is a much lower effort need in order to get things done. I just kind of got to trick one person. I just got to get one credential. It may not even be one at your company. It may be one that you trust from someone else. And so I'll leverage those trust relationships, especially if you have trusted vendors or trusted third parties. Whereas ransomware has a little bit more effort that is needed behind it, certainly, but it can also be much more devastating.
Okay, and of course they have entire buildings set up with people sort of managing and operating and threats, actors doing this. So just to finish, what are some of the common trends you're seeing when it comes to incident response work, just to tie it all together for us?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest trends, and this kind of goes along with the rise in ransomware that we've seen, is as originally adversaries would kind of lock your business down and say, hey, you have to pay me a certain amount. And And we as an industry got a lot better at preventing that from happening through backups, through failover systems, through how do I restore those operations. Adversaries get a vote in this scenario. They're looking at ways that, okay, they think of it like a business. Hey, this is how I used to do this. This isn't resonating with this market anymore. I need to now bring something else to the
Interesting.
market. And more commonly, we've been seeing examples of what we call the double extortion technique. So not only am I going to lock down your business and I'm going to prevent you from accessing your data, I'm going to take a copy of that data. And so even if you do respond, even if you are able to get your business operations back up, I'm then going to leverage that data in order to still attempt to extort you for money.
Absolutely. Well, no doubt you and I and the rest of the team at Arctic Wolf will continue to unpack these things, but I want to thank you for joining us, Brett. It's all the time I've got for you, and appreciate such a great rundown.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
And of course, thank you to all of you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you again very soon, right here on Ticker.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.